Thank you, Mr. Yates, and thank all of you. This has been a very interesting hearing this morning, and I appreciate what each of you is contributing. My husband and I just put solar on our home here in Washington, D.C., rooftop solar, and we actually argue over who gets to open the bill each month now to see what it is that we are, quote, saving. But it has been an eye-opener for us as a family. I would invite my colleagues to come to my office upstairs on the 5th floor here. Just yesterday, we installed our own little, we call it a grow tower, and it's comprised of several orange buckets from Home Depot, and we have hydroponic lettuce growing in it with a small circulating pump. It's a system that costs about $200 overall. We're utilizing some LED lights to really help demonstrate what it is that we can grow. We want to encourage everyone in the office to have a little bit of fresh salad every day. But what we're trying to demonstrate is that even in a cold and a dark, remote place, that we can, as Alaskans, grow some healthy things in a space that is very, very limited, and utilizing the efficiencies that we have with these LED light strips. So I think about the different things that individuals can do to kind of spark that imagination. It's kind of fun on top of it all. But I'd like to take my questions to you this morning to a higher level instead of what we as individuals are doing. And let me just ask generally to each of you, because you all bring a different perspective here. But I mentioned in my opening that we really haven't updated our energy policies around here for about a decade now. Can you give me some examples of where we have either impeded the progress in the areas that we're seeking to develop these enhanced efficiencies or opportunities or reduce our costs? Or if you can't think of those areas where the federal government has been in the way, can you provide us some examples where technical assistance or funding from DOE or from the federal government has made the difference? And I think, Mr. Greason, you mentioned in your comments that what you get 20% grant from DOE, a very specific example of how that financing helped kick your project over. So I'm throwing this open to each of you because I think it's important for us to understand what, from the federal perspective, we can be doing more of or less of to help these opportunities advance. And I don't care who starts. Ms. Donge.
Thank you. Just two very specific points when it comes to corporate renewables and what the buyers are thinking is definitely the PTC and ITC extensions. Mm-hmm. It is not necessarily that the tax credits are helpful. It is the certainty of when they phase out so that planning and OEMs can ensure their capital costs meet the demands of the developers. That's one example. Then the second example is the DOE's Sunshot Initiative, which has reached its goal a few years ahead of time, reached its goal this January of reducing costs to $1 per kilowatt hour. So I think that's a very significant way to prove that the cost reductions can go further for these technologies. Good. Thank you.
Others? Mr. Yates?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. A two-part answer to the question. The first would be, as we look at the implementation of even further renewable assets, the key is going to be connecting those generation sources with consumers. And sometimes that crosses state utility types of jurisdictions, and so the permitting process and how we can make that more expedient, more streamlined is, I think, a key opportunity. And then the second comment that I would make is we have a great relationship with renewable, with some of the national labs. And one specific example, we worked with the Renewable Energy Lab on some e-car charging technology to help automate that there in Colorado, working with an auto manufacturer and a utility. And so I think a collaborative environment and a collaborative ecosystem is key to continuing to move our energy sector forward.
Good. Anybody else? Mr. Simonton?
Thank you. As far as the federal government impeding our progress, I would say, and second, the regulatory turnaround is what really is impeding us in trying to schedule all of our drilling and completion permits in the federal acreage that we operate in. It's not the expectation of the federal requirements, and we're certainly willing and able to do that, but it's absolutely the turnaround is delayed by many, many months, and I think there's an understaffing issue that the regulatory body is having in the different regions that we operate.
Good. Appreciate that. Mr. Vera?
I would say that I don't see anything that's been in the way, but as energy storage is a new technology, right now the federal investment tax credit for solar does have some applications to energy storage, which is good, but I would just suggest for any future energy policy that was created that energy storage fits into renewables as in the way that it can help with distributed generation.
Great. Great. Mr. Merritt, you get to wrap the question.
Yes, so I'd like to point out 3 key areas I think are important for the role the federal government plays. One is, and I mentioned this earlier, early R&D funding and support for projects that have long lead times and potentially high levels of risk. These are projects that often won't be undertaken at the same scale or perhaps as soon if private industry does not have the support of federal research dollars. I think the role of the federal government in terms of demonstrations and trial projects, and in fact early adoption, is also a very key role. It does a few things. It validates the technology in the marketplace. It also provides early revenue for those companies that are trying to justify continued investment. And then lastly, I would mention the certifications and standards to encourage adoption, such as what's happened under the Energy Star program is important. I would highlight going forward, I'd mentioned systems efficiencies and the potentially very large gains that are available there. I think the federal government can have a very key role there in terms of demonstration and trial activities. Thank you.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you.